Hey everyone, I'm Charting Man Dan with the Chart Guys. I've been a full-time trader and trading the cannabis sector for the last 13 years. In this video, we're going to check back in on the psychedelic and cannabis stocks. We did so last weekend, and it's time for an update. Let's start with US cannabis into Canadian names, and then we'll close it out with psychedelic sector names, and I'll talk about the MNMD swing trade that I mentioned from last week's video. So MSOS, overview, fundamentals, again, short term, we're still looking towards safe, as I mentioned in the last video. And if you didn't see it, check it out because I gave more of an overview. I'm not going to go as in-depth into that this time around. But I feel that it's rescheduling that I care much more about. My friends that aren't interested in markets know nothing about safe and won't have any interest in safe. And they would in rescheduling. That would get their attention. It would be a national headline. So that's why I care more about rescheduling. But anytime you see social media rallying around call your senators, regardless of whether or not that has any impact, I'm cynical from my early 20s and my social justice days, but that's a red flag. That tells us that things are not going the way that we would like, and that it gets to a little desperation and reaching out to CEOs to try and get everybody to call your senators. Again, that's a red flag for the sector. That tells us things probably aren't looking real good. So, it's still, for me, the biggest change that I had in my trust of the government was learning about the history of cannabis and the laws around it. And it's on full display over the last decade. And so, you have to come numb to it at a certain point or you're going to pull your hair out in frustration. So we'll see if we get anything out of safe. That is definitely a short-term catalyst. If it fails and it becomes clear that's not happening this time around, then we can anticipate that we're going to head back to the base of support at the all-time lows down in the $5 range. We certainly have history to be going off of, the run-up into the last hopeful safe, and this was the reaction when it failed, a quick 50% plus drop. So again, people will jump on the short opportunity again. You think it's beat down, but if we go through and it's clear it's not going to happen again, people will short this into new all-time lows. So just be aware of that. As far as the short term into this coming week, the most important support is the recent little low that we just set. And for MSOS, that's at 588. If we can hold 588 and make it back to 650, then bulls are fine in the short term. But the fact that we saw a big old bounce on Thursday and then gave it all back, again, the sector is notorious for fast, hard pumps and then the inability to hold gains. And that's just professional traders gaming the system, just as far as taking advantage of the opportunity of the lack of news, the lack of liquidity, and just running things up to reshort it. And when you're getting these moves, they're 5 to 7%, and that's very worthwhile for professionals to continuously take advantage of. And again, you just got to look back to the last couple of months, and they did it here, and then they did it here, and they did it here. It's rinse and repeat for them. So 588 is a must hold. If we lose 588, we confirm a daily downtrend, and we're then looking to 571, and breaking 588 will show us bulls are losing their momentum, and that will not be a good sign. So key 588 support to start the week. As far as individual names, TCNNF, its key support is 441. Lose that level, and we'll have given back. This is how I use fib retracements, and on TradingView, it's Alt-F. So Alt-F, we've already given back 50%. If we break 441, I should say 50% of the move. If we break 441, we've then given back over half of that move, and it makes the trend change attempt that much more difficult. We haven't confirmed a daily uptrend yet. We need the higher low and higher high. And again, check out the last video and our YouTube channel for information on how to identify trends. We've got a lot of videos on the subject in the different playlists. But bulls have to confirm the daily uptrend, otherwise nothing changes. CULF, same thing, 360, double bottom Wednesday and Thursday. Must hold. If we lose 360, we confirm a lower high and lower low daily downtrend, and we then have weekly consolidation underway. Granted, there's a lot of space for a weekly high or low on Curaleaf, so we will anticipate a weekly high or low is then most likely, but bulls obviously want to see continuation and as much follow through as possible. And we are knocking on the door of potentially losing the short-term momentum that we had last week, a week ago. GTBIF has already lost the daily uptrend. So higher low, higher high, loss of the higher lows. The break of 770 was a red flag. We now have space for a daily lower high, anything under 848 as the most likely result of the next bounce. So again, very simple short-term analysis of the US cannabis sector. It's all news-based at this point. There is no catalyst and follow-through without that news dangling carrot. And if that gets evaporated, we're going to see bearish action. So it's worth keeping an eye on whether or not we're going to get a vote, whether or not it's likely to pass. And the charts and the price action is going to fluctuate with the probability that we get safe this time around. And again, at this point, so many people are so cynical. Here we go again. Never going to happen. Depths of despair. I mean, you just look at Reddit removes my videos. I don't even post them there. Other people post them and they remove the videos. Some of the mods don't like me, whether or not, who knows why. Maybe because I talk about psychedelic stocks, whatever the reason. Some of the comments, I mean, you look at the comments on Reddit about the cannabis space, specifically when you're outside of the weed stocks Reddit. If you're on Wall Street Bets, it's just all bear. It's there, here we go again, never going anywhere. And that's, if you're cash, that's a good thing. You want nobody believing in the sector, and then you want news out of nowhere forcing a short squeeze and forcing FOMO to see the big kinds of moves with significant gains. If you're in positions, obviously it's a different story, but it's all about safe in the short term. As far as CGC, so we're in a market environment right now where the broader market is seeing growth names that have been beat up, that ran up huge in 2021 and then dropped 80 to 90%. It's seeing them catch a bid and seeing rotation and laggard bull action. And so we were watching, CGC, I was paying attention. Are we going to see the bulls try a short squeeze here? And right when momentum started shifting, I mean, this was the first confirmed daily uptrend that we have seen in months. We get the information about, what price the shares, the recent dilution were given at, and it just absolutely, I mean, there's a whole new wave of bag holders. You think, how can anybody be a bag holder on this name now at 65 cents? Well, there are people that were on this momentum because it did go up, 50% plus in a week. But just like that, we are down 40% plus in one day. And so that is a whole new wave of bag holders. And, people talked on my last video and commented and said, the Canadian cannabis names are going to go up with US cannabis. And my response was that may be the case, but I know the bears are going to be much more interested in the Canadian cannabis names. It's short any pops. And the reason is, I mean, my mindset is these companies can go to zero. Absolutely. That's the bottom. The bottom is zero. And if I have that mindset, it's going to keep me safe and protected. And so this was just an example of, okay, momentum shifting a little bit, but here comes the fundamentals and here comes the news, putting it right back in its place to new all-time lows. And actually, new all-time lows by a fraction of a penny. And just completely erasing that move instantaneously. And we've done it before. I mean, we just ran 50%, give it all back, 50%, give it all back. And that's keeping the bears very comfortable. And so now 68 is the most important resistance. And again, 35, 30 cents. We're just looking at psychological levels. TLRY, anything above 153 is a daily high or low. But it's being dragged down with CGC. It's tied to it in terms of correlation and sentiment. And so, again, that could be a good thing. The only way it could be a good thing is if you're cash and if we get a news catalyst that leads to short covering, because this will get people overly confident on the bear side, as they have every right to be overly confident looking at the last year and a half. But again, if I'm cash and I am with this sector, and if there's a catalyst, I want as many shorts in positions as possible to be a part of that squeeze. But again, no sign of that squeeze at this point. Have to have a clear catalyst, not a dangling catalyst, not, hey, we might get something in a month. The here and now, we have rescheduled. That's a headline. I'm aggressively buying at the ask large position sizes in this sector. Anything else is not the headline that I'm looking for to go super aggressive. So TLRY, could this just be another weekly lower high and a bear flag to fresh lows? Absolutely, that's a possibility. The burden is on bulls to prove to us that this time is different, and so far this bounce is not doing that. So overall, cannabis bulls still have lots of proving to do. Psychedelic names have been stronger over the last few months, But CMPS did reject from resistance here. We've been in a nice tightening weekly range, which had our attention. High, low, lower high, higher low, lower high, higher low. Actually, that was a lower low there. But just tightening up. And so we got up to 1086. We broke it by a couple pennies. No follow through. Beware the gap ups. When you gap up on no news, especially after that kind of a move, gap ups are for profit taking. And our bread and butter trade in the cannabis sector leading up into legalization was buying strong closes, selling the gap up open first thing the next morning, and then rebuying 5-minute oversold conditions to reload cheaper. And oftentimes you could sell and reload 10% cheaper very easily with that trade. So that trade has burned into our brains. Gap ups are for selling. Not every single one, it's just a generalization. But if you're gapping up after a massive run of 50% into resistance, it's a time to be looking to take some profit. And that's certainly what happened here as we rejected from resistance. So we are still range bound as far as I'm concerned. It's still a tightening weekly range. We're looking for a higher low compared to 725 where we came from, but it's possible that we remain within this tightening range for another month plus because we now have space where next bounce, it's possible we set a daily lower high compared to 1092 and just remain tightening up. So no daily higher low has been set yet. The bulls are trying to defend $9 here, but we closed right above it on Friday. And again, another thing to be careful of is if you do not establish support on the way up, it's very easy to give that move back, which is exactly what CGC did. You know, there's no support here on the daily on this 50% move, and we just give it all back. Ideally, if you want to build support, you want to be stair-stepping up with higher lows and higher highs, because every higher low is a new support level on that uptrend. So CMPS is the leader for psychedelics as far as I'm concerned in terms of market cap size and volume. And so it's still range bound. And that's a bit of a red flag just in the sense that MNMD and ATAI both broke their weekly tightening ranges bullish, but you've got to see the leader follow. And the fact that it was unable to, a bit of a red flag. So MNMD, daily consolidation underway, trying to hold daily EMA 12, this red line, just like last time. If we can hold that, that's ideal to keep consolidation healthy. If we lose it, we then create the space for a daily downtrend to try and shape up. I sold some position, as I mentioned in the last video. I went long on Friday, last Friday. I forget where, 375 or 374. And I sold partial on the way up, just above $4, not far above $4. So at this point, my break even, selling a third, I believe I sold a third of the position. So looking at break even about maybe 455, 460 or so. So I'm comfortable in the sense that I'm just going to stop out break even, worst case scenario, unless there was a big gap down on bad news. But we had the weekly bull break here and a big upper wick. And so again, the fact that MNMD did not follow, a bit of a red flag. No, the fact that CMPS did not follow. MNMD just hit the highest level that we've seen in 9 months. That's a good sign. But again, the sector leaders got to join in here. So inside bar bear break on Friday. And again, I don't short these names, but this bear signal was at 418 and we very quickly drop over 5%. There is opportunity in both directions. I know most people that watch these videos are looking long and mostly swing traders and investors, but there's definitely trading opportunity for those that are putting the time in to learn that skill set. ATAI bull break on the weekly as well, but again, no follow through, big upper wick. So we broke 225. We do still have a daily uptrend, again, trying to hold daily EMA 12 to shape up a higher low at 193. If the bulls can break 207, 193 is our new daily higher low and our most important support level, just like we went over those cannabis daily support levels which need to hold, because if they break, we confirm daily downtrends. ATAI and MNMD are trying to set those daily higher lows. They have not been officially set yet. So overall, we saw great hype and momentum a week ago. We saw a little bit of follow through in psychedelic names, not really any follow through in cannabis names. And cannabis bulls are losing their momentum on the Canadian side. The US side is close to losing their momentum. Key supports in play first thing this coming week. And the psychedelic names need to set these daily higher lows to keep these daily uptrends strong, because if CMPS remains range bound and cannot get over resistance, then it's possible the whole sector trades sideways for another number of months. So that is where we stand in cannabis and psychedelics at this point. Again, I'm still paying attention to them, but it's not time, in my opinion, just yet to be going aggressive. And again, my motto that I keep repeating is, I went long CGC 50% off its lows in 2017, 2018, and still made hundreds of percent. And I went long Bitcoin when it was 200% off of its fear low at the CVID dump bottom, and still was able to make massive gains. So my point is, you don't need to nail the bottom. If the momentum is going to shift, if we are going to enter a bull market, there will be opportunity without nailing the bottom. We can be 30% off the lows and still have the possibility of a 100% move given the right catalyst. So that's just my motto to keep myself patient, because I know my history as a full-time trader, there's been plenty of times where I did not nail the bottom and still was able to benefit greatly. Feel free to ask any questions. Appreciate you watching. Thanks for the likes and subscribes and all that. The more attention these videos get, the more I'll make them. Do good things.